Okay, great. Yeah, shall we start? So today is the imToken's Layer 2 AMA sessions, and it is one of our series of events to celebrate our 7th anniversary. And today we have our dear guests. We have Sebastian from zkSync, Michael from Seller, and Cozy from Velocore. We shall have them to do a short intro later. And so before starting of these sessions, we're going to do a little bit introduction of our 7th anniversary. This is a series of events, and today's AMA is the third event in a row. And there are more exciting activities to come in the following weeks. So, for example, previously we invited the communities to vote the top 7 features that they would like imToken to deliver, and our team are going to discuss the list of items with the community next Friday. And we also have co-marketing campaigns with zkSync Era on 5th of June. So please pay close attention to our imToken official Twitter accounts, and we shall share those updates. And also for all the listeners here, we have one imKey here box as the prize for the listener who are going to raise questions at the end of the session. So please pay close attention, and you are more than welcome to raise your hands in Twitter space, and you can raise the question and we will share the prize to you. So yeah, back to our AMA session. Today's topic is about layer 2 and scaling. And we're going to discuss the different layer 2 solutions and understand the guests' opinions on them. And we will try to see the current status and the future directions of these protocols. And lastly, how the dApps and ecosystem are going to be built around these ideas. So before we jump into the exciting questions, let's have a quick guest intro. Maybe we can start with Sebastian first, and followed by Michael and Cozy. Yeah, so Sebastian, please.
Yep. Thanks for having me, guys. Pleasure to be here. My name's Sebastian. I lead DeFi at Matter Labs. Matter Labs is the company building zkSync. We have 2 versions of zkSync. zkSync Lite, which was the first zk rollup mainly used for payments, and zkSync Era, which was the first zk EVM. We've been live on mainnet since the end of March 2023. And yeah, pleasure to be here today and talk about scaling layer 2s and DeFi.
Yeah, maybe Michael. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael. I'm a developer at Seller. Thanks for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here to share some of our thoughts on scalability. And as we probably know, like Seller is a very OG project. We started off back in 2018, and we first started doing state channels, which was like the OG, like the very classical like scalability solution on top of Ethereum. And then we expanded to Rollup solutions. We built the DeFi specific a specific rollup for DeFi applications back in 2019 and 2020. And then we also expanded to the cross chain, the section of cross chain. So basically, we built Cbridge, which is a cross chain like messaging and liquidity bridge for many projects that trying to expand to multiple chains. So and we also just announced Brevis, which is like a zk data attestation platform, and which is also very helpful for like app developers who want to build like the apps that make use of off-chain data. So yeah, a lot of stuff that we do, and very happy to kind of like introduce some of them to the audience here and share our thoughts on scalability in general. Thanks.
Yeah, so next maybe Cozy. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Cozy from Velocore, and first of all, congratulations for your 7th anniversary. Velocore is the zkSync Era's native DeFi, and we launched the first V33 DAX on zkSync Era. And since our launch in last month, April, we have been working hard to provide trendy and innovative services and entertainment to the ecosystem, such as toy apps with cool illustrations, the Overflow Farming Launchpad, and the Waifu imToken by Velocore. And we are so proud to say that we have one of the most active community in zkSync Era. And being able to be here today is our thanks to the incredible Valkyrie members from our community and fantastic partners. And I'd like to say to them, and we're currently working on the V2 upgrade with innovative solutions unique to Valkyrie and plan to launch on next month. So thank you for having me.
Great. Yeah. So having all these dear guests with us, then let's jump into the exciting questions. So the first one is about scaling. Yeah. So we all understand that scaling is nothing new for blockchain in the Ethereum space, and many solutions were brought up during the discussion. And very quickly, we see layer two ecosystem to emerge to be the best scalability option for Ethereum since 2021. And from imToken, we have also done a lot of efforts, and we was one of the first few wallets that started supporting layer 2 ecosystem, starting from zkSync Lite and now zkSync Era, Arbitrum, Optimism, and etc. And layer 2 was stated as also one of imToken's key strategy as well. So to all the guests, we would like to understand what are your views and expectations of these mainstream layer 2 solutions, and what stages do you think the projects are at, and what could be some of the challenges that they need to address? Maybe we can start with Sebastian first. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So I think you rightly pointed out, right, that Ethereum needs scalability, and the best way to do this is through layer 2s, which started roughly in 2021. And the reason why the best way to do it is through layer 2s is because when you structure the scalability solution as a rollup, you're going to be inheriting the security that ETH mainnet gives, right? And this is probably the most important thing that Ethereum does is it's decentralized and it's censorship resistant. So it's really good at doing this, but it's not so good at making transactions fast or cheap when usage goes up, right? The network gets a bit clogged and transactions become expensive. So it was clear that there was a need to allow these transactions to happen elsewhere, but we didn't want to not have the security that ETH mainnet brings. And there's two ways to do these rollups. So you can do optimistic rollups or zero knowledge rollups. Now, optimistic rollups were the first type of rollups to go live in mainstream. So Arbitrum or Optimism, which I'm sure most people are familiar with. And they really did an excellent job at getting the users from Ethereum to start using rollups to accelerate how we could transact on the Ethereum blockchain on these rollups, to make things fast, to make things cheap, and to have a lot of the blue chips or the projects that are built on Ethereum to redeploy on these rollups, to have this EVM compatibility, this Solidity support. They did a fantastic job at doing this. So a lot of respect goes to them for that. More importantly, the second way of doing it, using zero knowledge rollups or zero knowledge cryptography, was deemed to be much more complex, but it was pretty widely accepted by the community that when this would be achieved, it would be the game changer that everybody's waiting for. And so zkSync, for instance, with our first version, zkSync Lite or zkSync V1, was one of the first zero-knowledge rollups. It wasn't EVM compatible, so it was just a rollup under Ethereum that was primarily used for payments. So if any of you have ever had a Gitcoin bounty or a Gitcoin payment, I think something like 90% of them went through zkSync Lite, which was great. But the real challenge was applying this zk rollup technology to the EVM. And the idea was to have a zk VM, which would be a layer 2 that's 100% EVM compatible, so where all the applications from the Ethereum blockchain will work. But to do this using zero-knowledge proofs with the simple end goal of making transacting on Ethereum the fastest and the cheapest possible. This is the mission that zkSync had. So zkSync is driven by a mission of empowering individual freedoms through financial sovereignty. And this is why we built zkSync. There's other players in this space as well. So there's Polygon with their zkVM through their acquisition of Hermes. There's Starkware, there's Scroll, there's Tycho. There's different players doing different things. But I think it's pretty widely accepted that once all of these zk solutions really scale up, that they will be the most used.
Okay, yeah, that's a very thorough understanding from Layer 2 from Sebastian. Thank you for sharing all this and do a very good intro of the Layer 2 concepts. So maybe we can have Michael to share your view on these mainstream Layer 2s.
Yeah, sure. So we are mainly doing cross-chain these days, and like as soon as those major mainstream layer twos came onto mainnet, we very quickly just try to bridge to them, including like Arbitrum, Optimism, and the newer zk EVMs, including the zkSync era. Yeah, so from a developer perspective, I think they've all done a quite good of a job. So basically, they're like almost 100% compatible with like the Ethereum mainnet, the EVM specs, and there's only like very minor differences here and there which we can tackle. And so yeah, from a developer perspective, I think they're very the layer twos have done a very good job at making them like developer friendly and easy to migrate their apps from layer 1 to layer 2. So that's a like very good aspect of them. And also from a user perspective, most users can just add a new chain to MetaMask and be able to like still using ETH as the gas and like being able to interact with the apps as they would on Ethereum layer 1. So that's also like a very good like aspect of those layer 2s. So I think from my personal perspective, I think most mainstream layer 2s are quite successful in that regard, like gaining tractions and like getting users and, and developers on board, all that. I think the main challenges are like because they're layer 2's protocols that like they have to inherit the security of Ethereum layer 1, right? So it just adds like a very significant cost to their operations. So because they have to like compete for the block space of the Ethereum mainnet, right? You have like, for example, recently they have like a bunch of meme coins, all that on Ethereum layer 1, which already occupy a lot of like the block space, and they're like sandwich bots kind of like pushing the gas price up to like very high levels. So that like all that costs are gonna like affect the operating cost of and also the gas cost of the layer 2s, right? So we see like, for example, Arbitrum and Optimism, like each transaction will cost $1 or even more, and also it's not as like it's not as low as we would want also on like zkSync. So like all those transactions are costing way more than like an ideal layer 2 should cost. Right? So I think that's a major challenge, but I don't think it can be solved by the layer 2 protocols themselves. Like Ethereum has to like I think they have planned for like the EIP 4844, which is going to basically lower the cost for the layer 2 of other rollups, right? So yeah, I think that's one major challenge, and I think the other one is the layer 2s, just because like they're almost 100% compatible with EVM, and they kind of also inherit a lot of the drawbacks or like the design flaws or like the poor design choices that EVM made during early days. So for example, like it's kind of hard for the EVM to kind of prune the old states, right? So you have this like state explosion problem, and like if Ethereum layer 1 already has it, then like by all those layer 2s, just because they have like faster block times, they have like more room for like all the users in the apps. I think the layer 2s will have a worse like state explosion problem. So we kind of see it on like some sidechains like Polygon and BSC, and they're doing like a lot of like sort of like centralized way to kind of solve this issue, but I don't think that's very ideal. So yeah, I think as the layer 2s continue like growing, then I think state explosion is going to be something that needs to be tackled, because otherwise you just fall back to centralization, which is not ideal. So yeah, I think those two are the main like challenges I see at this point. Obviously, there are like lots of issues. I think all the projects are working very hard and solving all of them. So yeah, that's my personal view.
Yeah, thank you very much, Michael, for sharing. And it's actually very interesting to see that we still think Layer 2 is having very high cost, although it is meant for scalabilities. So actually, we can talk about the future trends and some projects that aim to solve these issues later. Yeah. So next, maybe we can just have Cozy to share your view on the questions.
From the perspective of DeFi builders and as well as the users, I think what everyone is looking for from an ultimate net or the Rollups can be break down into two things. One is low gas fees and the second is solid TVL across the whole chain. With the current batch of L2 solutions, yeah, we are already seeing fast speed and diverse infrastructure coming up so fast, and so the competition is so fierce. So at this stage, it is crucial to attract chunk of TVL and some creative and well-organized marketing campaigns like that. By doing so, there can be a rich ecosystem between builders and users, and it can kickstart a fantastic cycle of growth, which is beneficial for all ecosystem participants. And also, as a perspective of builders, it is very important to develop and deploy easily what we have developed on the L2 chains, because it is sometimes there can be the unexpected troubles that we suffer. So I think the fast response from L2 kind of foundation or white glove support kind of thing can be the big challenge, and that's the important thing for builders, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you for sharing your perspective as a builder on Layer 2. Yeah, and we should continue to the next questions. Actually, just now, Sebastian already mentioned a little bit about this. We understand that Vitalik has predicted the optimistic rollup will win out in the short term, but in the long term, ZK rollups will win all use cases. So actually, we are also very curious to understand, do you agree with this view under the current circumstance, and what are your views on the OP and ZK solution? Which one do you think it will win? So since Sebastian already mentioned a little bit of his opinion, maybe we can start with Michael and Koi first. So maybe Michael, please.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I mean, I don't think I agree 100% to this view. Just because from my understanding, like all the ZK protocols, they'll have to bear the cost of generating the ZK proof. Basically, you're taking a pessimistic approach. You kind of think that anyone can cheat at any time and then post malicious state roots. So you have to generate a ZK, like a snark or Stark verification for any transaction, for anything that happens on chain. You have to kind of generate a ZK proof, which bear the cost of, I think, from the theoretical cost was 10 to 100 times more than the actual computation. So right, so that cost has to be paid by someone. So whether it be the operator of the layer 2, which in this case would be say for example zkSync, or you just kind of pass that cost along to the users, right? And you reflect that in the gas cost. So I think so I don't 100% agree that ZK the basically optimistic rollup is going to die even in the long term. I think for some use cases, for example, for the very the DeFi applications that kind of require very high level of security, I think ZK is the way to go. But for many applications, for example, like games or even NFTs, for example, application specific, even more application specific chains, they can still choose the optimistic rollup approach, just because the cost is, well, sure, there is still the cost, they have to post more data on chain, they have to post all the signatures on chain. So it's kind of debatable which one has the ultimately will have the lower cost. But I still think that the just because ZK rollups have to pay this cost to generate all the proofs, it kind of has a I mean, the operators kind of have, as of now, the operators have to pay that cost, and it's not the cheapest way to scale chains. So, yeah, from my personal perspective, I still hope that both solutions gonna coexist in long term, and users and applications can choose which one to use. Yeah, that's my personal view.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm just gonna hop in quickly here.
Sure.
So I think you're right. in some of what you're saying, but there's indeed the prover does generate costs, but we're also pretty early in these stages, and there's vast improvements that are being made in proving technology and how proofs function and the cost of generating proofs. So I think that these differences are going to be, with these material improvements, the difference will be seen very, very soon.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, obviously, like all the provers, especially, I think there will be like hardware-based provers, for example, like FPGAs and even ASICs coming up. So which is gonna like drive down the cost to generate those proofs very drastically. So yeah, I think in the very long term, maybe like even like 5 years could be like the ZK is not gonna have like a much higher overhead than it is right now. So yeah, it's possible that ZK is going to win, but just because, I mean, theoretically, like you still have to kind of like generate that cost by taking the pessimistic approach. So, like, yeah, I think there still might be optimistic or up maybe 5 years down the road. I don't know, like 5 years, Ethereum could be very different from what it is now. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all agree that zk is a very attracting futures to everyone based on the theories. And but on the other hand, Michael provides a very interesting view on how practically we are going to who in the ecosystem is going to bear the cost. So yeah, maybe we can also hear some thoughts from Cozy.
Yeah, yeah, nobody knows about the future. While the ultimately Rollups have led the charge thus far, and we are anticipating that ZK technology-based rollups to take the bottom next, and it's just getting started, and the technology will continue to evolve. So we are one of the big believers in the ZK technology, and we have high hopes for Metal Labs, one of the front runners in this field. So yeah, nobody knows the future, but we are the big believers.
Okay, great. Yeah. So having discussing about this OP and ZK, then we can also take a little bit time to see the depth space. So in addition to supporting layer 2 networks, imToken also spend quite some efforts to list the corresponding layer 2 dApps such as DEX, cross-chain bridge, and etc. So from your perspective, I guess, especially for Cozy and Michael, so what do you think are your respective roles in Ethereum layer 2, and how are you going to promote the development of layer 2? Perhaps we can start with Michael first. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So we are like mainly focused on like building the cross-chain infrastructure. So basically, our vision is to build this like omni-chain kind of operating system for all like the developers and users. So you can kind of like minimize the frustration you have when you either build a DApp that kind of like expand to multiple chains, or whether you're trying to like as a user trying to like interact with multiple chains at the same time. So we're just trying to like minimize that frustration, all the friction you encounter with that. And I think layer 2s already are like compared to like side chains or even like other like completely independent layer 1s that might be like even heterogeneous layer 1s. I think layer 2s already have this edge of, for example, like you only need ETH for all the gas costs. You don't need like to buy the other token, all that. So like once you have ETH, you can already use, for example, the official bridges or even us to like bridge to the layer 2s. So that like I think layer 2s already have a head start on that. And for us, I think we're just contributing to the adoption of layer 2s by providing the best in class like cross-chain experience. We already have like liquidity like token bridges for like all the major layer 2s, and we also do NFTs and even like generalized cross-chain messages, and you can do like cross-chain token swaps from either layer 1 to layer 2 or between the layer 2s. Like we already have very smooth user experience for all of that, all of those use cases. So yeah, and we'll continue to like we will continue to iterate on our products and bring like a better cross-chain experience for our users. So that's our like contribution to the layer 2 space. And yeah, and I mean, like as a team, we already have experience building like customized, specialized layer 2s for DeFi applications. So maybe like at some point, I think like the market kind of always like the space always kind of like is a pendulum between like specialized like app chains and like more generalized, for example, EVM kind of like smart contract chains. So maybe like sometime like people will think that the like doing stuff on the generalized EVM chain is still like a little bit more expensive, even though it's a layer 2, and they will try to shift towards like a specific application specific chains. I think like zkSync already does a very good job. Like you already have zkSync Lite for payments and like maybe specific like DeFi application. Then you have the zkSync Era for generalized applications. So I think maybe like at some point people will realize that we also need specialized DeFis, right? We need like specialized chains for like more specific purposes, and so that they don't have to like compete with so like meme coins or that other applications. So we'll continue to like kind of monitor that development and maybe like bring up with something new. We'll see.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, we do see Seller actually putting a lot of efforts to develop many cross-chain tools. Like besides the bridge, there's like the Seller IM, Brevis. Actually, we have a question later on those new informations, and I think Michael can share a bit more. So for this question, maybe if Cozy can also provide your answer to this. Thank you.
Yeah, in simple terms, that we are all about focusing on our lore as builders. So our goal is to create innovative protocols and deliver them to our users in safe and stable manner. So that's it in a nutshell. So like every emerging ecosystem, we have had terrible headaches dealing with so many lurkers and scammers, and yeah, but we have always been transparent about the protocol ourselves and what we are building, and we have kept our promise to our users. And now we are moving forward to improve, uh, uh, move to V2 upgrade. So maybe the Launchpad or Verify project can also be one of the points to, yeah, flourish the L2 ecosystem. And above all, we are staying true to our core values and mission. We think that the most important thing is just keep our promise to users. And it's about keeping our hat down and getting things done and always putting our users first. Yeah, I think it is just simple for builders.
Okay, cool. I can see your builder spirits in every question that you answered. Yeah, so thank you very much to helping build the layer 2 community. Yeah. So for the next question is actually for zkSync Sebastian specifically. So I think it is also a question that everyone is very care about. We recently see the Rails effect of Arbitrum airdrop, and we also see that there's a successful attempt from Optimism in the Arbitrum to use an ecological development approach and airdrop strategies to attract users. And their market shares also indicate a pretty positive feedback from the market. So the yet to airdrop zkSync has become the focus of the attention to the market now. So with the recent launch of zkSync Era, could you just share with us some of the more noteworthy aspects of zkSync Era, and especially when comparing to zkSync Lite in addressing problems such as high gas fees and etc. And also in terms of economic incentives, besides that, in what other areas will zkSync enhance user experience and expand ecological influence? Yeah, so Sebastian, please.
Okay, so there's a lot of questions here. Where you asked me about, I suppose the first one you're asking about my opinion on how Arbitrum and Optimism did their airdrop, and then you asked me about gas fees, and then you asked me about how we're going to promote our ecosystem.
That's actually very, very correct. Yeah, maybe you can start with the first.
Okay. So those are the three things you want to talk about, yes?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Arbitrum and Optimism both did I suppose a good job with their airdrops. Obviously, optimism was first, very governance-based. I think Arbitrum was able to look at what optimism did well and didn't do well, and then they adapted it for their jobs, also very governance-based, but also with this very big leniency on working with DAOs or with projects that were built on Arbitrum to their treasuries. And yeah, it's we don't want to talk really publicly about a token or when token or if or not token, but yeah, this is we're privileged to be in a position where if it's ever something that we wanted to think about, there's some really good precedents that have been set, and we can see what's been done well, what hasn't been done well, and that's very important. I suppose the only thing else that I could say is that, because we've said this publicly in the past before, so I'm comfortable repeating it, is that if there was a token, we would have 70% of the token to be for the community. This is very important for us. We're very driven by our community, by the ethos of the Ethereum community. We try to stay, we want to be aligned with it as much as possible. So that's our objective. Now to answer your second question with regards to gas fees. So, the way that these rollups work, they're partly dependent on the price of gas on L1. And obviously with the latest meme coin craze and things like this, gas prices shot up a lot. But there's a lot of work that's being done under the hood to ameliorate these things in order to become the absolute cheapest and fastest way to interact with the Ethereum ecosystem. We're already cheaper than Optimism, I believe, standing around, I think we're quite close to Arbitrum now. One thing that's important that users should know is that when they're making a transaction on zkSync, the price of the transaction that they're going to see is not the price that they're paying. So zkSync does gas refunds. Basically, users have to overcommit an amount of gas to be sure that there's enough gas for the particular batch that their transaction gets put in until the batch is sealed, and then they get refunded that gas as the transaction goes through. This happens all within the flow of the transaction. Let's say it's very, very quick. So you end up paying much, much, much less than what it looks like you're paying because you're getting refunded a very, very large part. So that's, I think, a pretty important thing to highlight. And then with regards to your third question about how we're going to promote the ecosystem, there's different ways to do these things. So we launched in March. We very quickly grew up with the TVL, which was very exciting. We're very thrilled about this. It's the fastest that a layer 2 has grown after its launch. And we're in the process of onboarding more and more projects, be it on the NFT side, the gaming side, or the DeFi side, right? At the moment, the DeFi side, I suppose, is maybe one of the more dominant verticals, but all these different verticals will have their fair share in the future. From a DeFi perspective, because this is what I manage, so I can talk a little bit about it. There's a lot of the blue chips that we'll be deploying over the next weeks or months, which is incredibly exciting. There are certain things that zkSync does really well compared to other layer 2s, which will be very, very important when it comes to trading. So we're thinking about perps, derivatives, that sort of thing. So one of the key architectural differences that we have is we use state diffs rather than call data, which will make using perps very cheap, or cheaper than on an optimistic rollup. Same thing as Oracle usage. So we're using state diffs, you can basically ping the Oracle almost every tick compared to generating a call data transaction every time. And we can talk a bit more about this later, but long story short, there's going to be a very vibrant DeFi ecosystem by the end of the summer, I think, on zkSync, which is incredibly exciting. And then part of the work that we'll do is then starting to onboard some LPs, some whales, some family offices, on-chain hedge funds, and to start to get a lot of this institutional capital. And we'll be working very closely with projects to do this. And then we're also working a lot on the retail side, so to try and get these new exciting projects that are using account abstraction. So account abstraction, everybody has heard about this, what it can change to front ends, user experiences. It's EIP 4337. I'm sure that you've all heard about it, but we have account abstraction natively in the protocol, which is around 10 times cheaper than at the app level, which is where 4337 is currently at. And this is very exciting for making these new front ends, these new user experiences for things like DeFi, like gaming, like NFTs, which I think will be extremely important in making crypto seem very user-friendly to new entrants in the crypto space. So when you put these two things together, you know, you have the institutional side and the retail side. We have a lot of plans, a lot of things to do to onboard more capital, more users, and make this the #1 layer 2.
Well, yeah. So, Sebastian, thank you so much for summarizing the 3 questions and laying out your answer in a very systematic way. And it's amazing to see there are so many things that are coming in the future months. And I think we will definitely follow your Twitter account for these updates very closely. Yeah, looking forward to all these new DeFi systems, capitals, and users to be onboarded on zkSync. Yeah. Okay, so next question will be for Cozy from ValueCore. And we understand that layer 2 technologies has very significant advantage in increasing transaction speed and reducing transaction costs. So specifically for ValueCore, could you just share with us how do you guys utilize the Ethereum layer 2 technology to drive the development of the DeFi ecosystem? And how do you utilize these advantages to improve your user experience, availability, and scalability of DeFi service?
Okay, Velocore has adopted the solidly based V33 model, which is known to generate quite a lot of gas fees. And the fact that we can operate with the current gas fee status is largely due to the zkSync Era mainnet, which, by the way, require far less gas for computation than layer 1 or other layer 2 even. Yeah. And despite the chaos caused by the recent Pepe meme token trend, which led to the skyrocketing gas fees, and we have managed with much less pain compared to other protocols in layer 1, and we also have heard that some whispers about an upcoming upgrade, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for even lowering the gas fees. The big shout out to ML Labs for the speedy upgrades. Yeah, we're so grateful for that, and moreover, we are moving forward to our V2 upgrade, which includes a more sophisticated AMM contracts and incentive system. And we're thinking about ways to leverage account abstraction, a unique feature of zkSync, as Sebastian mentioned right before. And imagine that if we could partner with services that have already implemented a technology, or we can provide by ourselves and support the features like batch transactions or native multi-cores on our DAX, that would give us an incredible advantages compared to other protocols, and we could offer some truly fantastic user experience through zkSync.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, and seems like the synergies between Vericore and zkSync is also something that we can expect in the coming future. Yeah, so thank you for sharing. And the next question is for Michael. And we understand that Sellers founder Dong Mo once stated previously that public chains are not the real entry points for users, and the blockchains will be highly segmented, and the seller aims to be the bridge between layer 1 and layer 2s. And starting from exerting efforts in state channels to launching Brevis this year, which is zkSync, zk full chain data computation and verification platform. Did seller make any changes in its layer 2 narrative? If so, what are the reasons? Yeah, and also you can also share with us some of the new infrastructures that you guys are building and the thoughts behind it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. As we already talked about, we are very kind of like a project that has already been around for quite a few years, and we started off doing state channels, and we did some exploration in customized, like specialized rollups, and now we kind of like doing mainly the cross-chain bridge as our like main product, but we also like added the Brevis, which is a zero knowledge data attestation framework, and that's like the stuff we're being like very actively working on. And yeah, so in terms of like our like understanding for layer 2, I think it is like as like the entire like I guess whether Ethereum community or like even the broader blockchain space, I think everyone's like understanding has always been like kind of changed based on what like the market wants and like what the current status is. So so like very honestly, I would think like state channel was like something that is a little bit like ahead of its time. So I think for Ethereum, like people like kind of ask more about like a more generalized like EVM based kind of like layer 2, so that like people can do like more generalized applications on those layer 2s, and state channels are kind of like too specific to, for example, like micropayments or like P2P applications, all those that don't have a lot of like share states. So I think it's more like too specialized and like too ahead of its time, I think. But I think in the future it will come back as a scalability solution. And for, like, just like look at the Bitcoin side, right? I think Lightning network is doing quite well, and although like it's not growing as fast as like people initially imagined, but it's still like growing at a steady speed, and like more exchanges are like integrating with Lightning network. I think Binance just like announced their, and also like Bitfinex, so like all those like exchanges are actively using Lightning Network to kind of lower the cost. So yeah, so I think all like scalability solutions, whether it be like Rollup or like side chains or state channels, are still have their place in the future, like as I would imagine it. So yeah, but for us, like we besides doing the cross chain stuff, we I just want to talk a little bit about the Brevis framework we just announced. So I think scalability has like multiple aspects to it. I think like one that isn't like mentioned quite like frequently is the ability to be able, for like any application, to be able to use any off-chain data. I think that's also like something to do with scalability. That's also like a kind of scalability. All right, so traditionally, like all the every smart contract, whether it be layer 1 or layer 2, they can kind of only use on-chain data, and for anything that's like off-chain, they kind of have to rely on an oracle, for example, like a Chainlink oracle, to kind of post the data onto the smart contracts. And that part, like you can't really just trust the oracles, right? Like historically, for many DeFi applications, like they've been subject to oracle attacks, like price manipulations, or like some like even the Chainlink oracle can have bug, and that kind of feeds like the wrong price or something. So, and I think that's where like zk can actually help. Like for an application, if you use the Brevis framework, and you actually be able to, for example, like take historical price on-chain price data and kind of compress it into a like a zk proof, right? So your application can have this like decentralized and like trust-free way to verify that the price feed from this like snark based oracle is actually like correct. It's not like manipulated. It's not it's not like you have this like mathematical proof that shows like that the price has a very high probability that the price is the one that's the actual price. Right? So I think that's also like a very important aspect of scalability. Like you're able to use any like historical on-chain data as your input as the input to your smart contract, to your DApp. I think that's also a very important aspect of it. And yeah, so yeah, we'll continue to kind of like monitor the space and like see what like everyone think is the most important. And we have like just by like having built a lot of like different things in the infrastructure, in like different kinds of infrastructure, we have the technical ability to kind of just like expand to any area and just like keep building on that. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thank you, Michael, for sharing. And yeah, so for things like Brevis, I think it's very glad to see new possibilities of utilizing zkSync in blockchain besides just layer 2. So yeah, very exciting to see the new things coming and see the adoption of it. So I think we have come to the last questions, and it's also related to some new ideas that the guests have mentioned. Maybe just for each one of you, regarding scalabilities, we want to see which are the new directions or ideas that you feel the most excited about and that you can share with everyone here. So maybe we can start with Sebastian first. Thank you.
Yeah. So for me, it's hands down fractal scaling. So fractal scaling, hyperchains, hyperbridges, the idea of being able to build what you could consider layer threes, so deploying a zk rollup within a zk rollup, and having this shared infrastructure layer that zkSync era is to optimize the scalability and give these new rollups, these layer threes, the structure of app chains, right? So you could imagine a little bit the architecture of something like Cosmos, but build on top of zkSync, and being able to have these trustless bridges will create such incredible opportunities for composability between these app chains. I think this is going to be pretty incredible. Furthermore, the mere fact of being able to build app chains natively on the Ethereum ecosystem, so not having trade-offs with regards to security and benefiting from the speed, the scalability, and cost savings that the zk rollup bring, I think is going to help onboard a lot of traditional companies, move their business logic from, I suppose, what we could call a Web 2 state of affairs to becoming truly Web3. And this counts for things like payments, transfers, trading. There's lots of different aspects that we could imagine a lot of these very, very large companies starting to truly have their business logic on blockchains. Think of credit cards, banks, the backends for online e-commerce, something like Shopify, something like eBay. There's, the possibilities become endless in this space. I think that's incredibly exciting to have these businesses built on chain and then become composable together. This will take time, but I definitely think this is probably one of the most exciting things in terms of scalability. And then lastly, before I sign off, apart from the scalability side, I think one of the most exciting things will be account abstraction. I mean, it's obviously a hot topic, and I think a lot of people are talking about it, but not yet that many people have either understood what we're going to be doing with it, or the infinite possibilities that these smart contract wallet accounts bring. But as builders do, they tinker, they play around, they figure out how things work, and then they start to experiment and do some crazy things. And I think it's going to be very exciting to start to see the new types of projects, applications, etc., that will get built from this. So for the Ethereum community, I would say the future is very bright, and I'm thrilled to work in this space and see what else people come up with.
Yeah, thank you, Sebastian, for sharing all these insights, and especially for fractal scaling, hyperscaling, and the narrative of layer 3. Actually, even myself, I think I'm very interested in this topic. So due to time limitations, unfortunately, we cannot expand on this, but I think we should definitely have another session just on this topic alone
So
to discuss.
So for the listeners, then, if you're interested in fractal scaling and learning more about, because indeed it's fascinating, but it will take a little bit too long to explain now. Just go on Google and search for fractal scaling slush, SLUSH. It's a paper written by two gentlemen. It's a proposal for fractal scaling. The website is on HackMD, and that'll explain what fractal scaling is. And it's technical, but it's understandable. And yeah, if you guys are interested, that's what you should do.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing. So next, maybe we can have Cozy share about some of the new directions that you are most excited about.
Yeah, for me, I also think that account abstraction can be one of the biggest solutions that we can expect from in near future that the over 337 proposal have got a lot of attention since last year, and there are so many things that can be done based on kind of abstraction. For example, builders can overcome the difficulties of Web3 kind of user experience as kind of a very easy as Web2 solutions. And anyway, one thing is very certain that there will be much more scalability solutions coming into play, and there will be diverse solutions designed to meet different demands and adapt to new unique service characteristics as industry grows. And I think the account abstraction infra can correspond to all of these demands as well.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, so sorry, due to time limitations, maybe we can just have Michael to just give a bit more on his thoughts besides the like things brevis that he just shared. Any other scaling solutions that you are excited about?
Yeah, sure. I'm also very excited about the fractal scaling, as mentioned by Sebastian. But also, like, I think from another perspective, we can also basically do another kind of like breakdown of the holistic, monolithic Ethereum approach. We can, for example, we can like have the data stored somewhere else, right? For example, like we can have the storage layer completely like refactored into some other like a data availability layer, which is also like you don't have to like post everything on Ethereum, so as to like not to compete with the block space, compete for the block space with others like meme coins or applications. So I think that's also very exciting. And where do you see like, for example, like the I think there's some like some chains already doing that taking that kind of approach, like separating the storage layers from other like execution layer even more. And you can also have like the for example the transaction sequencing be its own, like have a separate group of like machines to just do the transaction sequencing, and have a group of machines that does execution, and have another group that does storage, right? So like you have a like more heterogeneous way of architecturing the whole thing. So I think that will also help with scalability. I think Ethereum will eventually try to like move into that direction with for example, like 48, 44, and even like further down the road. Like I think eventually Ethereum is going to take like transition from its current like holistic approach, like monolithic architecture, to a more like heterogeneous and like different nodes kind of like serving different purposes approach. I think that will help vastly with like all the layer twos, right? You don't have to like basically you can price like different things differently. For the meme coins, and like the layer twos are actually like very different access patterns in terms of like how the nodes interact with them. So so I think but that's still like a bit further down the road, like a bit far away. But I think that's my like personal wish that the Ethereum was going to take that approach. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, I think we will definitely pay attention to the data storage related protocols and innovations. Yeah. So I think we have finished all the questions. Then now I will just give chance to the audience to have one quick question. Sorry to take just a few more minutes from everyone. So please, if you have any questions for our guests, you can raise your hand and request to speak. And I shall pick from, just give me a few seconds. Let me see anyone that requests to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, great. So I have a question to ask zkSync project. So now I see more and more projects are supporting zkSync era network. So my question is, will zkSync Lite network be closed in future, or it will keep on running? So this is my question.
No, it will keep on running. zkSync Lite, or the zkSync V1, is a zk rollup purely used for payments. It works very well. It's very fast. It's very cheap. It does pretty much one thing, and it does it extremely well. Our focus now is on the zk VM because there's so many more things to build on there and scale on there. But in terms of having ZK Lite, yeah, that's the thing. Thanks for your question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So thank you, Tsai. And I think that's all we have today. And thank you, Sebastian, Cozy, and Michael for having these wonderful sessions and sharing all the insights that you guys have. And thank you, everyone, for joining. Sorry for the technical glitch at the beginning and for taking a few more minutes from you guys at this time. So we're looking forward to have you guys joining our rest of the events to celebrate imToken 7 years anniversary. And yeah, that's all for today. Yeah, thank you very much.